Okay, on take 3, they're mowing the lawn outside, and my dogs are going crazy, so if they start barking, please bear with me. I read the books I'm the Cheese, The Impossible Knife of Memory, and Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and Watch the Purse of Being a Wallflower. I'm the Cheese is told by and about Adam Farmer. He is a young man who is on his bike traveling to see his father. You ultimately come to find out that Adam's family was put into witness protection when his father testified in a criminal case, and consequently his parents were killed, and he is now actually a patient at a psychiatric center. So really the text is mostly made up in his mind or based loosely on things that he's experienced that he's then kind of fabricated into something else. The book ends with the quote, "I am the cheese," which honestly I had to look up to understand its significance. Throughout the book, Adam Farmer's father is singing the song "The Farmer in the Dell" because their last name that they were given when they went into witness protection was Farmer. So you then realize, I'm the cheese, Farmer in the Dell. In the song, "The Farmer in the Dell," the cheese stands alone. And at the end of the book, you come to realize that Adam is alone. He has no family. He has no identity. He doesn't even really have his sanity. So this isn't a book that I really cared for. And it made me think about whether, I don't ever recall a teacher telling me that they didn't like a book. So I think that's okay for us to talk to students about, is that, there's going to be books that you don't like, and that's okay. So I think that's something good that I took away from reading of that book. The Impossible Knife of Memory, set in present day. Its main character is Haley Rose. She has a father with post-traumatic stress disorder. He was in the military and saw active duty in combat, and it's really taking a toll on him. He's not dealing with it well. He doesn't have any kind of help, and he's self-medicating. He's losing jobs. He's lashing out. So it's Haley dealing with that on top of all the other things that kids typically deal with in high school. So friends, their own problems, their families, romantic interest, things of that nature. And the quote I chose from that book was, "It's your own damn fault. Stand that close and you're gonna get hurt." That was said by Haley's father. And in the context of the book, it was meant literally. He was splitting wood and it went flying and almost hit her. But I think within the greater context of the book as a whole, is very meaningful. Obviously in the military, if you stand close to something dangerous, you're going to get hurt. And it can also be applied to people. If you know someone is dangerous, you're going to get hurt. And maybe it could be also kind of a negative mindset. You get close to anybody, you're going to get hurt. So when I read that quote, it really stood out to me. Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda is about a boy, Simon. He is gay, but not out, and he's worried about being outed. And the quote that I chose from that book is, "It is definitely annoying that straight, and white for that matter, is the default, and that the only people who have to think about their identity are the ones who don't fit that mold." And that really makes us question, our preconceived notions about people. We automatically assume so much about a person upon seeing them, and a lot of those assumptions may be 100% wrong. So that would be just a great way to get a conversation started with young people about, what are the things that we assume? What do we assume about ourselves? What do we assume about others? What do we think about the people who go against those assumptions? Why do the people who are not the default, who don't fit the mold, is it fair that they have to announce over and over and over again, "Hey, I know you think I'm this way, but I'm not." So great topic, great discussion, very relevant. to today's youth with conversations about gender identity and sexual identity becoming more and more commonplace. So it's something that kids can really relate to. But like it was brought up in the article about the book Stitches, simply just having this book in the library isn't going to make kids, you know, more sensitive to other groups of people. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be taught. It needs to be really pulled apart. Because sometimes even when people think they're being open-minded, they're not, and they're just perpetuating stereotypes. So this could also be a point when a teacher comes under some scrutiny for maybe discussing things that some people feel are inappropriate, controversial, etc. And having a justification and a reason why you feel it's important to have these conversations and these texts in your classroom or in the library or wherever is very important. And I really liked the point that the article in the textbook brought up about having these reasons ready and planning ahead. Not that you want to plan for conflict, but just so you yourself know, like, yeah, I right now would like to go and talk with a bunch of students about what it means to be gay and gender norms and all of those things. But if someone were to say to me, well, why do you need to do that? I would want to have a clear and concise and reasonable answer for them, not something that I just made up on the fly and was emotional, because there are reasons why we need to discuss all of these things in school: mental health, teenage sexuality, sexual identity, gender identity, all of those things. But we also need to know why we want to and need to discuss them. And should someone ask that question, why? You want to have a reason ready. So I think having that plan and those rationales for the books that you are including in your classroom or library is an important thing to do. Because, you know, we all lesson plan and plan out, you know, when we're having our assessments and things like that, but we don't think about planning reasons for the books that we're using. Excuse me. The last part is the movie, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's a great movie. Centers around the character Charlie, who is kind of this, you know, just kind of go with the flow kind of guy. And I picked one of the quotes is, "We accept the love we think we deserve." That's a pretty popular quote from that movie. I remember seeing that quote floating around when the movie first came out. And we're taught, you know, in teachers' prep programs that students will raise to the bar you set. And if you have low expectations of your students, that they'll meet them. If you have high expectations of your students, you know, not everyone is able to do the same things, but you have to think positively, and that applies to all aspects of life. If you think you're not deserving of love or respect, you're not likely to get it. So I just really like that quote, because adolescents especially are first, you know, kind of dealing with those feelings of love and romance and attraction of whomever, and realizing that they are important and they are deserving of love and respect and understanding. And that is important. And those are things that I think we don't talk about enough, and consequently people don't understand themselves and what they want from someone else. So those are things that, you know, kids can really relate to, that the feeling of being understood, the feeling of wanting someone to love you. So these 3 books and a movie overall. The I Am the Cheese, I think, would be a great book for a class-wide discussion, class-wide read. I think it's a little too obtuse for